Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jimmy. So guys, today I have a very special episode for you guys. Today, I'm going to remember and reminisce about an artist who passed away in 2018. The artist I'm referring to, of course, is Bob Wakelin. So guys, without further ado, let's actually jump right into the topic at hand, shall we? Bob Wakelin was an artist who grew up in Liverpool, England. He actually worked as a part of Ocean Software, creating many of their covers at this time. It's interesting to note as well that he also did partner up with DC and Marvel to create some covers for them as well, for their comics. That's actually something pretty gosh darn interesting. Another interesting tidbit about Bob Wakelin is the fact that he actually never played video games, or how should I phrase this? He didn't consider himself a game player, even though he did create a lot of video game covers, because he was a very talented artist. It is of interesting note as well that he also had his own band at one point in time before he went into this whole business of creating video game cover art. So he made music, and he actually illustrated the covers to his band, which will show up right here, in fact. Those look pretty gosh darn cool. So as you guys know, being an artist and painting in general, it takes a lot of discipline. As you can see in Bob Wakelin's artwork, he has a lot of talent, because he took a lot of time to hone his craft. So hey guys, it's pretty rad. Bob Wakelin himself is actually most fondly remembered for one game exactly. And that one game is Contra on the NES. Or more I should say, Contra... Actually no, it's actually called Grazer. He's known for that cover art of Grazer. It's very cool, and it's very funny to note that, well, he was actually not a fan of that cover art. He thought it was boring. Wow, he legitimately thought that cover art was boring. Holy flippin' heck, man. I mean, I myself as an artist, when I used to draw more consistently, I do have artwork that I'm not too entirely proud of at all. But this guy, it is funny to note that he really hated that cartoony style of drawing for some of the games that he would work on. Paracel Stars being one point of contention for him. He absolutely hated that cover art, because he just hated that style. Hunchback 2, Quasimodos Revenge is another one. He really did not like that cover art, because he really just dislikes that cartoony style. And quite frankly, I can definitely understand where he's coming from, because when I draw, I do like to draw more realistically proportioned things and people. It's kind of like those, how can I put this? It's one of those things where you have to practice drawing something real in order to really get good at drawing miscellaneous stuff. And just characters in general, cartoons I should say. You have to learn how to draw real people and just real objects in general. That's something that takes a lot of discipline. And I do know a lot of people who, between you and me, really prefer to skip over that and, not do that. That's not what you're supposed to do. But yeah, guys, Bob Wakelin is a pretty fascinating individual. He's a musician. He created his own artwork for his album covers. He worked at Ocean Software in the 80s, up until their death in the 90s. Or, I mean, not really their death, but they pretty much just dropped off the face of the earth. It is pretty interesting to note as well that some of the cover art that he has, when Ocean Software was gonna move buildings, essentially from what I understand, not too far down, they told him to come pick up his artwork because they were gonna trash it the next day. Yeah, that's pretty intense. They were literally gonna throw away priceless art. Holy crap. That is absolutely insane, guys. So hey guys, next up we're actually going to take a look at some of Bob Wakelin's work, because it is pretty interesting to note that Bob Wakelin didn't actually have a website of his own, so a lot of his work was not archived. So the fine people at exotica.org took the time to actually message back and forth with Bob Wakelin to get some of his work. So next up, we're going to look at some of the works that they were able to preserve and keep, and read some of the comments that were exchanged in those emails. Just little quips that Bob Wakelin himself had. So guys, without further ado, let's actually take a look at some of these, because Mr. Wakelin's vernacular was pretty coarse. He was a pretty coarse man. But you know what, I can definitely understand where he's coming from, because, I mean, he kind of grew up in a not-so-great era at the time. So guys, without further ado, let's actually jump into some choice examples, shall we? Alright guys, so first cover we have up here is Athena. It is pretty fun to note that this is a super badass cover art. Like, holy crap. This is a really good cover art. And let's actually read Mr. Wakelin's comments here. Alright. Fun to do. Caused a little controversy in those politically correct times. One sad fellow complained to Ocean that the Minotaur's midriff armor looked like a large phallus. Maybe he had a point. Athena was based on Lisa Lyon, an 80s pioneering bodybuilder. The Minotaur and tree were sketched out for me to finish by my mate, Floyd Hughes. Bob Wakelin. So hey guys, it is pretty interesting to note that he actually collaborated on this piece with Floyd Hughes. It is a super dope cover art. This is an absolute gnar piece. This is, quite frankly, one of my own personal favorites that I have for Mr. Wakelin. So next up guys, let's actually look at Batman, the Caped Crusader by Bob Wakelin. Let's actually read his comment, shall we? All I really remember about this one was Joe Orlando, DC's editor-in-chief at the time, loving it. After I shortened Bat's ears. I think it was the first illustration I sold on to a collector. So yeah, so this is actually one he was commissioned to do. And apparently, Joe Orlando, DC's editor at the time as it says here, really enjoyed this piece. Granted, Batman's ears were a little bit longer. I'm very curious to see how he used to look in that picture. So guys, next up is Cabal. Another good one. The main character is modeled by Carl Pug, Ocean's assistant AD. The guy in the background is Mr. Operation Wolf. I used a photo from the same bunch I took that game cover. Ocean's version. Everyone thought it was a great in-joke, but I used it purely for convenience. So guys, this is actually a really interesting point by Bob Wakelin here. So, a lot of these cover arts that you see, these are all people that have modeled for them. A lot of people really don't understand that, well, models are used for everything. They're not really just going to come up with something on their own. They're going to have some kind of reference or some character reference of some sort. It is interesting as well that, well, Operation Wolf is one of Mr. Wakelin's games that he actually designed the cover for. And it's actually the same dude in that cover in the background. And well, it just seemed easy enough for him to just copy over and use. So guys, next up we're going to look at another one, and it's actually going to be one called Comic Bakery. So let's actually read Mr. Wakelin's comment, shall we? My mate Floyd drew the raccoons. I colored them in. I think they were his DMs I drew on the baker's feet. I would have never have drawn raccoons like that. They're pretty fucking weird. That's all I remember about his pretty unmemorable illustration. And so yeah, this is one that apparently Bob Wakelin is not really a fan of. And again, this is another collaborative piece with, well, Mr. Floyd himself. So, this next one is Daley Thompson's Decathlon. This is one that's apparently fondly remembered in the gaming community, but Mr. Wakelin has another alternate take on this, so let's read his comment, shall we? Famous game. Not a great illo, although a lot of people seem to like it. Ah, nostalgia, eh? Makes rubbish appear to be gold. I probably spent around 2 days on it. Daley looks okay. The lettering and background are crap. So yeah, this is one that Mr. Wakelin himself apparently thought the central focus was alright, but everything else is pretty crap. So guys, next up, we're actually going to take a look at a couple more. Not really much else. I think we're going to actually look at the one that everyone seems to know him with, and that is Grazer. So let's actually read his comment, shall we? A Predator Alien ripoff is what the game appeared to be, so I supplied a Predator Alien style pic with ripped Arnie's Predator poses. The white areas were left for screenshots to be dropped in. A thoroughly boring job to do, although a couple of my survivalist bodybuilding NAM-obsessed mates thought it was cool. So yeah, this is one, as I mentioned earlier, he was not too keen on. He just thought it was boring, and you know what? I can definitely understand that. I can understand where he's coming from. Though for a lot of us, nostalgia is a hell of a drug, because I really like this cover art. I think it's one of my favorites that he has, that he really thinks is super whatever. So guys, let's move on to the next one, shall we? The next one is Hunchback 2, Quasimodos Revenge. Let's actually read Mr. Wakelin's comment. Can't stand it. I had to imitate a style I friggin' hated. Dave Ward loved the cartoon breast. Seriously. So yeah, this is one that Mr. Wakelin did not like. He hated the style that he had to imitate for it. Apparently this Dave Ward fellow really thought the cartoon breasts were really hilarious. So I'd hope that's what it was. So next up on the list is actually one that was not released. This is a cover art that wasn't released, and it is Kid Chaos. This one actually had an alternate cover used. So this is the alternate cover that was actually used for the Amiga version. And now let's actually look at the one Bob Wakelin himself wanted to use. Oh yeah, this is definitely something different, guys. This is something that, quite frankly, I would much rather have on my shelf, compared to this kind of, super cartoonish looking one. It is very fascinating to note that Mr. Wakelin himself actually really enjoyed this cover art. He actually really liked it. Even though it's in that weird cartoony style he was not a fan of, I guess this is a cartoony style that he doesn't mind so much. So let's actually read his comment, shall we? Or more like I should read his comment for you guys. This was the original illo for what became Kid Chaos. Apparently, both the name of the game and the image I painted were too violent for someone's delicate nature. Probably the Germans. It's a friggin' cartoon, for God's sake. Look! The bunny is laughing at the flat-top moron. They're having fun! I really like this piece of work. Shame it was never published. So yeah, guys. This is one that Mr. Wakelin has some pretty strong feelings about. And he has strong feelings for the German's rating board, or just whatever was around at the time. So guys, there are many covers I could cover that Mr. Wakelin did. There's only a few more that I'm actually going to cover and read his comments on. So let's actually look at a select few, shall we, guys? Alright guys, so next up on screen we have Miami frickin' Vice. So guys, I don't know if you guys are aware, but I really love Miami Vice. Miami Vice is one of my favorite TV shows. Like, I really love Miami Vice, guys. So, let's read what Mr. Wakelin has to say about this cover art, shall we? Another example of putting the cart before the horse. A lot of time, effort, and money went into printing this as posters, ads, and inlays before Don Johnson's agent apparently informed Ocean that Mr. Johnson did not take kindly to artistic interpretations of his beautiful mug. And Ocean must immediately dump this appalling scribbling and replace it with a photograph that barely represented his luminous handsomeness. You'd have thought that Ocean would have always checked the acceptability of the images they were about to use in licensed properties. Not that I cared, because I still got paid, and was by this time getting accustomed to the frequent cock-ups. So yeah, this is pretty interesting, because apparently Don Johnson's agent had a lot of say in what was used, and apparently Ocean didn't really seem to take their job as seriously as you would think they would, which probably explains why they're still around and doing so goddamn great in the video game industry. They're not around anymore. So yeah, guys, the next one on screen is actually Mr. Nuts in original artwork. So I'm actually just gonna let Mr. Wakelin talk about this for a bit, shall I? This was the original preliminary character illustration. I don't have a copy of the game box art. It went on a trip somewhere. Ocean were obviously trying to do a Sonic with this game, and there was definitely a feeling of nervousness and uncertainty in the air when discussing the right approach to take with the artwork. Dave Ward wanted Nuts' footwear changed from Converse style to streetwise style, with the laces undone and the tongue hanging out. I opined that fashion was already fading away at the time, and that the more classic basketball style was a timeless look, and would be a better choice. What happened next was that he got a guy in their studio to do alternative footwear versions of the character, and suddenly we had different footwear on different packages. There was also a lot of screwing with the box art background, but I almost lose the will to live when I try to remember the convulsions that went on at the time. Frankly, the whole saga got on my tits and was only redeemed when I got paid. And that wasn't enough. So guys, there's that vernacular of Mr. Wakelin. I'm not gonna lie, reading Mr. Wakelin's comments on some of these game covers and illustrations is, well, absolutely hilarious. He had some very strong opinions, and a lot of it came down to, hey, they're giving me money, and I'm doing something I love. Even though, granted, sometimes he did have to draw stuff he was not too fond of, like Paracel Stars and Hunchback 2, The Revenge of Quasimodo. But, hey guys, it is what it is. Sometimes we all just gotta get paid. So guys, and with that, I'm going to end this video here. I just wanted to take a quick look at an artist who was pretty influential for a lot of people. I'm pretty sure he influenced some of you guys to take up the pen, the pencil, the brush, I don't know, the Wacom tablet pen, whatever the heck that thing's called, to start drawing and illustrating and doing whatever you like. He maybe cultured a love of art for you guys. Granted, for me, that guy was Greg Martin. That was the guy who cultured that love of art for me. But that will be a subject for a different video. Bob Wakelin, may you rest in peace. Thank you for your very, very memorable artwork. You guys, thanks for tuning in. And hey guys, remember to stay absolutely radical, alright guys? And to answer your question, yes, I do have this in a long sleeve and a short sleeve. I didn't just re-sew the sleeves on or whatever, guys. Remember to stay rad, alright guys?